The wolf was dying. Silver-gray fur clung to his body, matted with frost and blood. His front paw twisted unnaturally beneath him as he clung to a narrow, icy ledge, 30 feet above the frozen Black River. Wind howled between the cliffs, carrying with it flakes of snow sharp as glass. Below, water rumbled beneath the ice like a beast waiting for its prey. He didn't move, not out of fear but because he couldn't. The pain in his chest was deep, crushing. And yet his golden eyes didn't blink. He was watching something, or someone. Above him at the edge of the cliff, a small, trembling figure let out a long, mournful howl. A pup. The little one stood frozen, paws gripping the snow, eyes wide with panic and heartbreak. His fur was black as soot, his legs too long for his body. He was calling, again and again, into the endless wild, not knowing if anyone would hear. But someone did. Miles away in a small off-grid cabin tucked deep in the Montana wilderness, Jack Whitaker paused. The old man was halfway through checking one of his trail cameras when the sound cut through the silence of the forest. A howl, sharp, young, desperate. He froze, chest tightening, breath catching in his throat. That wasn't just a wolf's cry. That was something else. A cry for help. The memory hit him like a slap. Blood, sand, heat. Afghanistan. A German shepherd named Baron bleeding in his arms. And the helplessness, the crushing helplessness. Jack clenched his jaw and looked to the trees. He wasn't going to fail again. Evergreen Tree, who is Jack? Jack Whitaker wasn't your average woodsman. At 63 he looked older, white beard thick, shoulders stooped, his gait stiff with age and memory. He had once been a military veterinarian, patching up wounded dogs under fire. He had served in places where compassion got you killed, and yet he had always kept a piece of it hidden in his chest. His wife and daughter were killed 12 years ago on an icy interstate outside Denver. After that, he had disappeared into the mountains, turning his back on people and cities and traffic lights. Nature didn't lie. Wolves didn't pretend. He lived alone in a hand-built log cabin surrounded by pine and snow. His world was ruled by quiet rituals, checking cameras, tracking prints, writing notes in a leather-bound journal. He didn't talk much, but he listened, to the trees, to the snow, to the heartbeat of the wild. And lately he had been listening to one particular wolf. He called him Silver, a powerful male with a silver-striped back and piercing eyes. On Jack's trail cams, Silver always appeared with a smaller figure trailing behind him. A pup, lanky, awkward, black-furred, curious. He'd named him Ash. He didn't know why they mattered to him. Maybe because Silver reminded him of Baron. Maybe because the pup reminded him of the daughter he'd never see grow up. Or maybe because he'd spent a lifetime patching up broken things. Snowflake the storm. The howl came again, longer this time, more urgent. Jack turned his head, the snow biting at his cheeks. The sky above the ridgeline was changing. Fast. Low clouds tumbled down the mountains, the early whisper of a blizzard. No time. He packed up the memory card from his trail cam and started moving. Fast. The trail was thin, winding through snow-laden trees and jagged rocks. Jack moved with practiced urgency, his heavy boots crunching the frost. Somewhere ahead there was a wolf who needed help. A wild animal most would leave to die. But Jack wasn't most people. Snowflakes swirled in the wind like shards of broken glass as Silver moved silently through the trees. His breath came in sharp bursts, misting in the air. Every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. Ahead of him, on the edge of a frozen clearing, a bull elk stepped cautiously into the open. Massive, proud, dangerous. Silver stopped. Behind him, Ash nearly stumbled as he tried to mimic his father's movements. His gangly legs sunk deep into the snow, and he let out a sharp huff of frustration. Silver turned his head just slightly, one piercing yellow eye fixing on the pup, and the cub froze in place. Watch. Wait. Learn. The bull elk lowered its massive head to nose through the snow, searching for roots. Its antlers glistened with frost, a crown of bone and ice. The moment stretched like a wire between them, and then, Silver moved. He didn't lunge. He flowed. His paws barely touched the ground as he arced around the edge of the clearing, cutting the elk off from the forest. Ash followed, clumsy but determined, pushing through the drifts with wild-eyed energy. The elk bolted. Snow exploded under its hooves as it turned toward the mountain trail, a narrow path that hugged the edge of a steep ravine. Silver was faster. He closed the distance with terrifying precision, teeth bared, ready to strike, when suddenly his rear paws hit something slick beneath the snow. In an instant everything changed. Eschewed the edge. Silver's powerful body skidded out of control. His claws raked at the rock, but the ice betrayed him. Momentum carried him forward, and over. Ash watched in horror as his father vanished over the cliff. There was a crash. A sickening thud. Then silence. The pup stood frozen, heart hammering. He crept forward, inch by inch, paws trembling, until he could peer over the edge. 30 feet down, Silver lay motionless on a jagged shelf of stone, half buried in snow. One foreleg bent wrong. His chest rose and fell in ragged, uneven rhythm. Blood smeared the snow like spilled ink. Ash let out a cry, high and broken, a call no animal should ever have to make. A single note of despair that echoed through the valley like the soul of winter itself. Fire. Meanwhile, Jack was only a mile away. He had already veered off the trail, following the direction of the wind and the faint rhythm of the howls. His legs moved through deepening snow, and the sky had gone a strange, smoky shade of gray. A blizzard was coming, he could feel it in his bones. Then he heard it again. The pup's cry. Closer now. Clear. Urgent. Terrified. Jack broke into a run, heart pounding in his chest. Fog at the cliffside. Ash didn't know what to do. He circled the cliff's edge, sniffing, crying, pacing. The wind tore at his fur, but he didn't move away. He couldn't. Not when Silver was down there, hurt, maybe dying. He howled again, louder this time. Again. Again. Until his voice cracked. Below, Silver's golden eyes blinked open. He saw the ledge, saw the sky, saw the pup. And then he saw something else. A figure. Human. A tall silhouette emerging from the swirling snow. A man with a weathered face, gray beard, and eyes that held a story too heavy for words. Jack stepped carefully to the edge, one hand resting on a pine trunk for balance. His gaze swept down. There he was. Silver. Broken. Bleeding. Trapped. Jack's heart dropped. He knew that look. The look of a creature that knows it may not make it. But even more surprising than the wolf on the ledge was the pup standing barely 10 feet from him, not running, not growling, just watching. Waiting. Jack took one step closer. Ash didn't flinch. Open book 3. The choice. Jack stared down the cliff. The wolf wasn't just hurt, he was dying. One leg twisted, chest heaving, his breath shallow and painful. Blood stained the snow in deepening red. And yet, the wolf wasn't panicking. His eyes were open, alert, locked on Jack. Not wild. Not pleading. Just waiting. Ash crept a little closer to the man. His tail low, ears back, but not snarling. Not running. It didn't make sense. Jack knew animals. He had stitched open wounds under mortar fire. He had held dogs dying in his arms, whispering nonsense just to keep them calm. He had seen the light go out of their eyes too many times. And now here was this wolf, a wild animal, lying on the edge of death, not afraid but still holding on. Jack felt something shift in his chest. But then another voice, colder, sharper, spoke in his mind. Leave it. It's nature. Wolves die. You're alone out here, old man. You try to climb down there and you'll fall. You'll die. And no one will even know your name. He stepped back. Ash let out a low whine. Jack looked at the pup, then back down at Silver, and his breath caught. Because in that moment he saw another face. A memory. Baron. The German shepherd who had pulled a wounded soldier from a burning truck in Kandahar, only to take shrapnel to the chest. Jack had carried him back behind the lines, hands soaked in blood, whispering into that soft, sand-covered ear, "Stay with me, boy. Stay with me." But Baron had died before the medevac arrived. And Jack had never forgiven himself. He had spent years trying to forget, trying to disappear. But grief didn't vanish. It just buried itself deeper. And now here it was again. Different body. Same eyes. Same silent plea. Don't leave me. Jack knelt slowly near the cliff's edge. Ash didn't run. In fact, he took a cautious step toward the man. One heartbeat passed. Then another. Jack whispered almost to himself, "You're just a kid, huh?" Ash tilted his head. Jack looked back down at Silver, still breathing. Barely. Then he stood up. His body was sore. His knees ached. The storm was rolling in fast and the wind was picking up. But his mind was clear. He was going to save this wolf. No matter what it took. Compass the plan. Back at the cabin, Jack worked like a man on a mission. He hadn't moved this fast in years. Rope. Climbing gear. A torn canvas tarp. Medical kit. Bandages. A vial of morphine left over from the military, just in case. He even cut strips of flannel and wrapped them around parts of the rope, to keep it from cutting into the wolf's skin. At one point, he looked toward the old rifle resting in the corner near the fire. For bears. For emergencies. He walked over, gripped the stock, then stopped. No, this wasn't a mission of death. This was a mission of trust. He left the gun behind. Paw prints. The pup waited. When Jack stepped back out into the cold, Ash was there, a small dark shape at the edge of the woods. He hadn't left. He hadn't run. Jack stared at him for a long moment, then spoke softly. "All right, kid. Let's go." He didn't expect the pup to understand. But Ash turned and started walking, and Jack followed. By the time they returned to the cliff, the wind had teeth. Snow sliced sideways across the ledge like 1,000 tiny knives. The sky was the color of steel, and the trees moaned under the weight of the coming storm. Jack dropped to his knees near the edge, pulled off his backpack and began preparing the rope. Ash stood off to the side watching. Not moving. Not blinking. Just waiting. Below, Silver hadn't moved much. His chest still rose and fell, but it was slower now. Shallow. Time was running out. Jack took the length of thick, static rope and began forming a loop, wide enough to slip around the wolf's chest and front legs. He tied a stone to the bottom of the loop to give it weight, wrapping it in cloth so it wouldn't clatter and spook the animal. His fingers worked fast despite the cold. Muscle memory from a life ago took over. Knots. Double checks. Anchors. He wrapped the rope around the base of a sturdy pine. Pulled it tight. Twice. Then he stood. One breath in. One breath out. He stepped to the edge. Brain eye to eye. He saw Silver looking up at him again, not with fear but something else. Curiosity? Resignation? Acceptance? There was no growling, no teeth, no wildness. Just a pair of tired, golden eyes and a snow-covered face. Jack slowly raised his hand, not in threat, just presence. "I'm not here to hurt you, old man," he murmured. "I'm gonna try to get you home." He tossed the first loop. It missed. It bounced off the rock and fell into the ravine. Jack cursed under his breath, hauled it back up, tried again. Second throw, better but still not quite. Silver flinched. Jack waited. The wind howled. The pup whimpered softly. Third throw. Jack aimed carefully, timed it with the stillness between gusts, and released. The loop arched through the air, and landed perfectly in front of Silver's chest. Jack froze. So did time. The wolf looked at it, sniffed, let the scent sit in his brain. Then, impossibly, unbelievably, he moved. Slowly. Carefully. He nudged the loop with his nose. One paw forward. Then another. Jack felt his breath catch in his throat. Come on. Come on. Silver dragged the loop beneath his chest. He shifted, slowly, until his shoulders were inside. Jack gently pulled, tightening the rope just enough. It was done. The wolf had accepted the rope. Accepted him. It was trust. And it was terrifying. High voltage bound together. Jack double-checked the knots, hands shaking with adrenaline and cold. His heart pounded like it hadn't in years. He wrapped the rope once around his forearm, braced his boots against the snow, and whispered, "All right, Silver. Let's get you out of this." Then he pulled, and the storm above them roared to life. The rope went taut. Jack felt the full weight of the animal slam into his arms and back, nearly yanking him forward into the abyss. His boots dug deep into the snow as he staggered, muscles locking, heart hammering. He grunted, repositioned his stance, and started to pull. Every inch felt like lifting a truck. Cross swords, man versus nature. Silver didn't fight it. Somehow he understood. As the rope tightened around his chest, he didn't panic, just braced his good paw against the ledge and tried to help. Above, Jack leaned back with all his strength, hands blistering beneath soaked gloves. The icy wind screamed around him, flinging snow into his face, biting through his coat. The rope burned. His shoulders screamed. And yet he kept pulling. Every time he gained a foot, he paused, gasping for breath, heart pounding in his ears, then gritted his teeth and pulled again. At one point, a chunk of ice broke loose from the cliff above, crashing down just feet from the wolf. The rope shuddered. Jack nearly lost his footing. He shouted into the wind, more to himself than anything. "Not today, damn it. Not today." His vision blurred from sweat and snow. But he didn't stop. Brain flashback. In his mind, it wasn't Silver at the end of that rope anymore. It was barren. It was every soldier he couldn't save. It was every time he'd stood at the edge and turned away. Not this time. This time he pulled. This time he fought. Wolf faced one last push. Silver, now dangling just feet from the edge, let out a low, pained whine. His good paw clawed for purchase and caught a ledge. Jack gave one final heave, using every ounce of strength he had left. The wolf's body crested the cliff edge and collapsed into the snow beside him. Jack dropped to his knees, gasping, hands bleeding, arms trembling uncontrollably. They had done it. Silver was out. Alive. Fogg's silent understanding. For a moment, neither of them moved. Just the howl of the wind, the rush of blood in Jack's ears, and the soft rise and fall of the wolf's breath beside him. Then Silver stirred. He lifted his head, slowly, and looked at the man. Golden eyes locked with gray. No growl. No snarl. Just breath. Just recognition. Jack reached out, slowly, and rested a hand not on the wolf's head but on the rope near his chest. "I got you," he whispered. Ash crept closer from the trees, his thin frame shaking with cold and fear. He pressed his nose to his father's side, then looked up at Jack. The pup didn't run. He didn't snap. He just stood there. For the first time in over a decade, Jack felt something inside his chest unclench. The wind slammed the door open as Jack staggered into the cabin, dragging the heavy canvas tarp behind him. Silver lay on it, unconscious but breathing. Ash followed close, wide-eyed and dripping snow. Jack kicked the door shut with a grunt. The cabin, warm from the morning fire, now smelled of pine, herbs, wet fur, and blood. He dropped to his knees beside the wolf and unwrapped the rope. Silver didn't move. His chest rose in shallow, painful breaths, and his injured front leg was already swelling. Jack pulled his gloves off with his teeth and went to work. Stethoscope the field medic returns. He moved like a man possessed. Bandages, sutures, a needle of morphine into the muscle. Splints made from broken kindling and cotton ties from a flannel shirt. His hands bled. His joints screamed. But he didn't stop. Every motion carried the muscle memory of 1,000 battlefield nights, of bleeding soldiers and working dogs, of sand and screams and smoke. Only this time, it was quiet. No gunfire. No yelling. Only wind. Only breath. Only the sounds of life. Fire the fire between them. By nightfall, Silver lay by the stone fireplace wrapped in old blankets, his breathing slower but steadier. The blizzard raged outside, slamming against the cabin walls like a living thing. Snow piled against the windows. The trees groaned. Jack sat nearby in his old armchair, a cup of black coffee in his hands and Ash curled in the shadows near the hearth, eyes fixed on his father. The pup hadn't made a sound since they entered. He hadn't run. He hadn't attacked. He simply stayed close but not too close, watching everything Jack did. At one point, Jack looked up and said softly, "You're not supposed to be here, kid." Ash blinked. Jack chuckled. "You and your dad, you're lucky. Or maybe I'm just the fool who doesn't know when to walk away." He took a sip of the coffee. It burned. Or maybe I needed this. Paw prints, quiet moments. Hours passed. The fire crackled. The storm roared. And still the three of them remained. Man, wolf, pup. Each broken in their own way. Each bound by something they didn't fully understand yet. Jack finally stood and walked over to Silver. The wolf stirred but didn't growl. Jack crouched slowly, reached out, and for the first time, touched the side of the animal's neck. Warm. Alive. Grateful? Maybe. Maybe not. But real. I don't know what happens after this, Jack whispered, voice nearly lost to the storm. But I'm not letting you die here. He turned off the last lantern and let the firelight flicker across the walls. And for the first time in a long, long time, he slept without nightmares. 3 days passed. Silver healed slowly, resting in the shadow of the fireplace. He didn't move much, but his breathing deepened and his eyes grew more alert. Ash never left his side, except to sniff cautiously around the cabin or to drink melted snow from a metal bowl Jack left by the door. The storm finally broke, leaving behind a forest wrapped in ice and silence. It was almost peaceful. Until the camera traps told Jack otherwise. Camera with flash, a different kind of predator. Jack sat at his desk, flipping through the new trail cam footage. Most of it was what he expected. A moose wandering past, a fox darting across a ridge, the shape of Silver and Ash limping near the old logging trail. Then he froze. Frame 237. A man. Thick build. Camouflage coat. Shotgun slung over one shoulder. Frame 238. Another man. Taller. Wearing a hood and carrying a backpack, and out of it the curve of a steel snare. Jack's gut twisted. Trappers. Illegal ones. Poachers. They were hunting. And given how much attention Silver had drawn near the river cliffs, Jack had no doubt who they were tracking. Brain the silent decision. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, jaw set tight. It would have been easy to do nothing. Just stay quiet. Let nature decide again. Let Silver go back to the wild and face what waited for him. But that wasn't who Jack was anymore. Not after the cliff. Not after that night by the fire. He stood slowly, went to the cabinet, and pulled out his old hunting knife. Not for blood. For defense. For survival. Then he whispered to the empty room. You saved my soul, old man. Now it's my turn. Evergreen tree setting the trap. Jack didn't sleep that night. He moved through the woods like a ghost, wiping tracks, rerouting trails, scattering his scent in wide arcs. He followed the wolf tracks until they reached a dead-end ravine, the same one he knew Silver had once used as shelter. Then, with precision honed by decades of survival, he covered the real tracks with pine boughs and laid down false ones, twisting away toward the deep bog, where the terrain was nearly impassable. He planted old bones, claw marks, urine sent from a bottle used for coyotes. Let them follow ghosts. Let them chase the wrong path. Paw prints, watchers in the dark. At dawn, Jack returned to a ridge overlooking the valley. With binoculars pressed to his eyes, he waited. 2 figures emerged from the woods. Talking. Laughing. Following the trail. The wrong trail. Jack exhaled long and slow. Behind him, unseen in the shadows of the pines, Ash sat silently, watching. The wind had calmed. The forest lay still beneath a pale morning sun, its silence broken only by the crunch of snow beneath Jack's boots as he returned to the cabin. His trap had worked. The poachers were gone, confused, frustrated, and too cold to keep searching. They'd followed the false trail for hours before vanishing from the cameras entirely. Jack didn't celebrate. He just walked in, threw another log on the fire, and knelt beside the fireplace. Silver was awake. Fully. Wolf faced the alpha rises. His golden eyes followed Jack's every move, alert and calculating. His ears perked when Jack opened the door. His breath came slower now, strong, steady. When Jack approached, Silver shifted his weight. For the first time he stood. It wasn't perfect. His injured legs still trembled. But he stood tall, head high, tail balanced, back straight. Ash let out a low, excited yelp. Silver turned, touched noses with the pup, then looked again at Jack. There was something ancient in that gaze. Not gratitude. Not fear. Recognition. Jack didn't speak. He simply knelt and placed a hand on the floor between them. An offering. Silver stepped forward. He closed the distance between them and, with a quiet huff of breath, rested his snout for the briefest second against the back of Jack's hand. Then he turned and walked to the door. Evergreen tree into the trees. Jack opened it. No command. No whistle. Just opened it. Snowflakes danced outside in the calm air. Pines stood like sentinels in white armor. Silver stepped outside. Ash followed, close behind. But just before disappearing into the trees, the pup stopped. He turned. Looked back. Jack met his eyes. And in that instant, something unspoken passed between them. A thread spun of memory and bond and respect. Then Ash turned and was gone. Package echoes in the cabin. That night, Jack didn't sleep. He didn't pace. He just sat by the fire, staring at the place where the two had lain for nearly a week. The silence wasn't empty. It was full. He reached into the drawer, pulled out his old field journal, and began to write. January 14th. The wolf has returned to the wild. But I don't think he's alone anymore. And I don't think I am either. Open book 9. The last image. Weeks passed. Winter deepened. Snow blanketed the forest in thick, silent layers. The air turned sharper, the nights longer. Jack moved through the woods like always, checking his traps, logging observations, tracking migration patterns. But something had changed. Something in the way he stood a little taller. Something in the way he looked toward the tree line each morning, waiting just a moment longer before turning away. He didn't expect them back. Not really. But hope, it's a strange thing. Quiet. Persistent. Like a heartbeat you forget is there. Camera with flash January 29th. The trail cam near the old cedar went off at 2:41 a.m. The next morning, Jack loaded the card into his laptop. He flipped through the frames with the same quiet routine as always: deer, owl, fox, empty snow, until he stopped. Frame 417. There he was. Silver. Fully upright. Proud. Eyes sharp. Fur thick and clean. The injured leg no longer dragging. He was walking straight through the camera's view, like he owned the forest again. Jack smiled. Frame 418. No longer a pup, but still lean and quick, trailing just behind. He had grown. But that wasn't all. Paw prints a new chapter. Frame 419. Another shape. Smaller. Lighter fur. A second pup. Frame 420. A fourth shape. Another. Jack leaned closer to the screen. 4 wolves. 1 pack. His pack. Silver hadn't just survived. He had returned. And he had brought a new legacy with him. Brain full circle. Jack sat back in his chair, staring at the screen. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. There was peace in his eyes. And something more: purpose. He reached for his field journal, opened to the last entry, and added one final line. He came back. And he wasn't alone. Neither am I. House with garden, the final shot. That evening, Jack stepped onto the porch of his cabin with a steaming cup of coffee. The air was still. The trees stood tall, silent, ancient. In the distance, barely visible, 4 dark shapes moved between the trees. Ash stopped. Even from so far, Jack could feel the gaze. He lifted his hand. The wolf tilted his head. And then they were gone. Into the forest. Into the story. Sparkle's epilogue. Sometimes we think we're saving something wild. Sometimes we think we're doing the rescuing. But the truth is, the wild saves us, quietly, patiently, fiercely. And if we listen, if we stay still long enough, we just might hear it call us home. Paw prints, if this story touched your heart, let us know. Leave a comment and share what moment stayed with you the most. Your words inspire us to keep bringing you stories like this, tales of trust, courage, and the wild spirit. If you enjoyed this journey, please like the video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you won't miss the next chapter. And if you have your own story worth telling, we'd love to hear it. Who knows, it might be the one we share next. Thank you for watching. Blackheart, the Wilderness Stories team.